Well, welcome to Move the Stairs. This is episode 106, and we're recording on Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. And we're happy you're here joining us for this episode.
Yeah, we have a very special guest joining us today, Omar Lababidi. He is the founder and CEO of Goldswarm Honey. And we're going to talk a little bit about his adventure because he's joining us, or rather, he lives in Nigeria and is on a bit of a homecoming here to Colorado where he grew up to promote Goldswarm Honey. He is the self-proclaimed biggest Broncos fan in West Africa, in Nigeria. So we're going to be talking about that and really his journey to where he is today. Right, Diane?
That's right. So if you're trying to wrap your head around honey, Nigeria, Broncos, Colorado, just stay tuned because this is going to be a really fun podcast. I am really looking forward to us meeting the man who truly understands what it means to move the stairs.
Absolutely. This is cool how it all came together. So in this story, it took just one bite of some remarkable honey for Omar to know he had to bring it back to the rest of the world. But the real story is the path he took. This is a path only someone who sees opportunities where others might see, well, those could be obstacles to many.
Yeah, and before we're done with this story, you're going to have a great understanding about how Omar uses his personal history, his story, that goes back decades with the Denver Broncos and how that formulated into a partnership that got his honey into a limited edition Denver Broncos whiskey. On top of that, his brand supports the livelihoods of Nigerian farmers and promotes sustainable honey. And this is something that is near and dear to him. So I think we've given him a warm introduction. So let's welcome him to the virtual stage. Omar, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy homecoming trip here to join us on the Move the Stairs podcast. It's clear you're a visionary, but before we dive into the honey and the whiskey, two things that are near and dear to me, can you connect the dots for us? How did a kid growing up in Colorado end up in Nigeria as the self-proclaimed #1 Broncos fan and is now working to build a global honey brand?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Jordan, Mitch, and Diane. Well, the credit would have to go to my parents. I mean, I was born in Colorado and grew up in Nigeria, so that was their choice. And the Broncos connection comes through my mother's side, where her father, Richard Kitchen Sr., was one of the founding members and owners of the Denver Broncos. So a lot of that was out of my hands, and then also like on my dad's side in Nigeria, being involved in agro-industrial business. So being around wheat and farms and being in that space. I mean, I had no idea I would eventually get back to the Broncos or Colorado in a working sense, but I was always disappointed that I missed the heyday of my granddad's ownership, and I always thought that maybe one day I could buy the Broncos, but again, and take it back. But I guess through honey is the way I'm going to have to do it, or at least have the affiliation to the Broncos, which is a good start.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this honey for a moment. So we'll kind of fast forward. Now you're in Nigeria. The way I understand the story, you're in a hotel, you're eating breakfast, you taste this honey and think, oh my. Mm-hmm. So take us back to that moment if you can. What did it taste like? What was going through your mind where you thought, okay, more people need to try this?
Well, it was on a field trip, actually. We were promoting a ramen noodle that we had developed with African spices, and so I was visiting distributors up country. So it was kind of like safari mode. You're out in the bush type thing, sleeping in like tents and guest houses. And so for breakfast, all it was toast and honey, and they had brought that from around the corner, and it just blew my mind by the taste, the texture, and the color. And the one I had at the time was slightly peppery, and I had just never had that before. And I'm sure when you've had something and it hits you in the back your mouth, and you kind of get that tingle. That's what I had, and that whole sensation where almost it was a physical reaction to it, and I was just blown away, and I couldn't believe it that this was honey, and because I just never had it, just so used to the standard table honey that everyone gets everywhere, and I didn't believe it was actually honey. And so I asked her on the way back down, because we were going north. And then so on the way back down, I picked up a couple gallons, took it back to Lagos, and I asked some other people to try it, because I say, like, is it me, or is this beautiful? I mean, incredible. And they said, yeah, this is something else. And so this was around 2015, but it stuck with me, and I clearly remember this moment of being like, this is a beautiful product. This story needs to get out there at some. And I said to myself, hope maybe one day I'll be the one to do it. And so that stuck with me for a while, because there was some other business issues to sort out in Republic of Benin. And then, so let's say fast forward to 2021, I think. And I said to myself, well, why don't I do it? And if it's in Republic of Benin, logically speaking, it should be in Nigeria, because it's the same ecological zone. And sent some guys to go get it. They brought it down, and they're like, "Is this it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly it." So that was like one thing, and then the other thing I was like, "Well, somebody must be doing something, with it. It has to be. It's too gorgeous of a product to just be sitting around." Did some research, and I was stunned that there was absolutely zero export from Nigeria to the United States. And so I said, okay, like I'm going to do this. I'm jumping on this. So, basically, got the group together, called in the troops, and said, all right, we're gonna do this.
I love that, and I love when you said you're going to do it. You were very thoughtful about how you went about it, because sustainability is so important to you. It's one of the philosophies you have. You're going to get a doctorate in sustainability, and this eco activism, where you looked for a way that you could really save trees and save that whole area of the forest. And I think that started with you when you were back in Estes Park, where you really fell in love with the forest for the first time. Is that right?
Yes, it's true. When having summering in Estes Park all the time, the beautiful nature of being in the Rocky Mountains, I'd always come back and just to that gorgeousness. But around that time, it must have been like mid '80s, when they started developing the Stanley Park, just below where the actual Stanley is, and they were putting in that first Safeway and all that stuff. So that was the first big major development in Estes Park. And I just remember, for whatever reason, asking my grandmother, are they cutting down the trees? And every summer I would say, are they still cutting down trees? And just sort of stuck with me. And so, and just that sensation. And even before the honey, like whenever we would do construction projects in Africa, I would do my best to work around the trees and not cut them down. So, fast forward into the honey business, and what's beautiful about the honey business is it's naturally sustainable. It's a I don't know, no pun intended, but like it's a golden circle. It's a virtuous cycle. So the more I'm not lying or I'm not making up stuff by saying we're a green company. It's by nature. By having more bees and more hives, you have more honey, you have more trees, and so that it's a virtual cycle that can help economic development and help sustainability and prevent deforestation. So the two merge naturally of having an entrepreneurial business, capitalistic, but also good for the planet. So the two come together hand in hand without it being forced or fake.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Yeah.
That's a great story for the media, which gets us right into our next section, which is, we always talk about insider media relations. And why do we do that? Well, as you know, Omar, all of us at M&C Communications, we're all former journalists. So we see the media can be someone that can help promote your cause, your business, build your brand. So we teach our clients to take advantage of all those media opportunities, and it positions them really nicely in their vertical, in their industry, as experts, and also someone the media can turn to when they need an interview on that topic. So we like working with the media.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And we were thrilled when we heard that you wanted to plant that brand flag right there in Colorado. And then there was this serendipitous opportunity where Breckenridge Distillery is looking for a honey. My understanding is that they had a honey and the people pulled out of becoming part of the Denver Broncos honey whiskey at the last minute. And somehow someone you knew them and put everything together. And now we have the Denver Broncos honey whiskey, and it's full circle for you as you come back to the Broncos again. Tell us more about that.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely a thrill to have it full circle on, and coming through my mom leaving Colorado in the 60s to end up in Nigeria. Then I'm coming back. I never would have thought about coming back through Nigeria, with honey. But it started with our one of our partners, and they knew Breckenridge, because we were developing our own honey vodka, and which we've launched recently, called Oya vodka. But they were friends, and Breckenridge had tried it and said, "Oh wow, this is really, really good. What's it based on?" And the partner said, "Just Nigerian honey." And they said, "Well, can we try some?" And so he called me up and said, "Are you okay if I send some of the honey to Breckenridge?" And I said, "Absolutely," because I had seen, in the past, the Denver Bronco honey, and their affiliation with the Denver Broncos, and of course, kind of fingers crossed in the background, but not really expecting much. But when they came back and they said, that they really loved it and wanted more, I said, "Please God, let them, love it, because this would be amazing, to really be like, yeah, I'm back now." Yeah. And then they came, back and they said they loved it, they wanted more, and they wanted to create the product with it. And I said, "Absolutely, let's go." And because it's an opportunity. I mean, not just like a business opportunity, but it's it's a family opportunity. It's a story opportunity. It's a legacy opportunity. Because even for my mom, it's nice that I can, she kind of is back in as well. The whole family is. It's something that was you would thought was kind of in the rear view mirror, but which is now you're now back in today with, which is doesn't happen very often, and for it to come in such a roundabout international way is rare as well, and then also to be the first, I believe the first, at least Nigerian first, but definitely I'd confidently say African first to be affiliated with an NFL team is a very unique and special thing.
It's cool.
Absolutely. And it's fun too, right, Omar? I mean, you've had a blast. You're talking to reporters from print to television to radio, and it's a lot of fun watching that coverage stack up. And it's got to be great to see your company's name in the headlines, but there's another reason why we do this. And that's why we like working with you, because you see the importance of this, and that's building credibility, and it's building public trust.
Yes.
That may not, directly relate to or bolster your bottom line, but you're doing something more here, and you're doing what's called filling the trust bucket. So whereas other companies, may just kind of want to see their name in the headlights, you're working on building something long term. Can you tell our audience why that's so important to you?
On a personal level, I don't want to sell anything that I don't believe in, just on a fundamental philosophical, basis. And then, secondly, you want people to, want your product and believe in it in general, but specifically, with honey, because there is this sustainability element, economic development, that's even more critical that people believe in it and want it, so that, because it can't just be a hard sell type business. You want people believing in the story and what it means, and in some ways create some hope and buy-in, that the consumer believes that they're part of something through spending their hard-earned dollar on something that will, they believe, not only do they enjoy, but contributes to positivity in the world, whether it's bringing attention to economic development in Nigeria, promoting women's empowerment, and preventing deforestation. So again, all these elements kind of converge in this business, which I find very fascinating, and which I didn't really expect in the beginning. But as I got into it more and more, it was just this big convergence, this nexus of beekeeping and creating the business, which almost speaks to the fundamental nature of bees and where it fits in our human existence, without being too dramatic.
Yeah. Sharing a story about how it all came about, I always find fascinating. And sometimes when we talk to clients, they say, "Oh, they don't want to hear that." It's exactly what they want to hear, because it kind of helps them connect with you. So if we have entrepreneurs out there watching and listening to this podcast, and they're maybe a little intimidated about talking to the media, what's your advice to them about handling the media and making those interviews count? What would you say to them?
You have to be very comfortable in what you're saying and be authentic, because if you don't, the media will find out one way or the other. And so you have to be confident in your product and yourself, and understand that the media can help, but with attention also comes, it can be a double-edged sword. So one should be very comfortable in knowing it can go both ways, but the more legitimate or authentic you are in your product, then the more likely the media will be on your side. And again, I would say media is also human, and people want to tell good stories. Mm-hmm. And so for the media as an industry, if they have to do their job and get things out there, but then at the same time they can also do more and promote more. And I think that's also something that what I recognized with, and why I've tried to set things up on the sustainability side of, associations with the University of Florida, Georgetown, Harvard, even the Denver Broncos, is to get that credibility out there, so that there is a wider story that's not just me trying to sell honey. But then when I say that, we've worked with, we've trained 1,000 students in beekeeping this year in Nigeria, of which a majority have been women. That's a great story. And people want to hear, and then you can point to, and then through that you get more attention, because it's things can die easily in the dark, and the more you can, and this is probably especially true in poor countries where people just don't pay attention to things. And so if one can tap into the media, you can draw that attention to whatever issues that you care about.
Yeah. I used to have people I interview when I was a reporter, and they would be nervous. And I said, "No, you don't understand. I need you to do well. I'm not out to get you. Yeah. If you have a better quote, if you have a better story, then I have a better story." So they really do want you to succeed, but you need to be, have your ducks in a row and be prepared. Yeah, let's talk a minute about creating that resilient brand. Every business out there should, I hope they're all doing this, always looking for ways to strengthen their reputation, protect their bottom line, strengthen their brand. And so we always talk to clients about, find the opportunities, even if it looks like a challenge, because that allows you to polish your reputation, and then you get kind of used to being prepared for the unexpected. So we'd like to talk for a minute about building a resilient brand.
And Omar, you've done such a great job because not only you've just recently partnered with the University of Florida, but you have partnered with a university in Nigeria, and you're looking at other university endowments around the country and pulling in that university, their name, their brand. It's one of the really smart ways that you build credibility.
Yes.
And I'm interested, how did you come about thinking about that? And do you think that this is going to pay off for you?
It will absolutely pay off. But the reason why I came to that as a strategic push was because I understood the reputation of Africa and Nigeria in particular when it comes to the United States, because I'm now talking to an American audience, and then I want their buy-in and their belief. So there's that level, and a great way to do it is now to have institutions. It could be any institution,
right,
but institutions that they understand, and ride off that credibility. And because education's been a big part of my life, and I believe in the power of higher education. That's like my path, that I was like, okay, if I can create these partnerships with higher education institutions, that's one level of credibility for the American, for an American audience, but also then it allows it fits in with the development part, because I had originally clicked when I was at the Nigerian University, the Federal University of Nigeria for Agriculture, FUNAB, in Abeokuta, and it clicked that this could be a source, a strategic partnership of like where, if we can create some programs for training Nigerian students, then it's like, then I can bring in technology. I can, you get to know your customer, which is a Nigerian farmer, and then, build education programs. And then because I've schooled extensively in the United States, I was like, okay, well then to take it, the next step would be to partner with a U.S. university, and they get cross connection between the two, and then I've closed the loop, the education loop. And then so once I had Florida in place, and this is important, before I even launched Goldswarm, I wanted to make sure I had a couple sustainability partners lined up, including FUNAB. There's a forestry conservation group in Nigeria called Dawn. And there was another affiliation with the University of New Zealand, Christchurch. So that was already lined up and launched from day one, because I don't want people to ever accuse me of backfilling.
right.
And so, but as I started saying, then go and add it. Like, no, day one, minute one, this was part of the DNA of the brand, and where I wanted to go with this. So these affiliations, credit the credibility and the trust element, again, particularly with American consumers, but then also the ability to build the brand and technically and fundamentally.
Well, and it all boils down to, Omar, your deep commitment, this non-negotiable for you, where you're putting the heart of your story in these incredibly hardworking beekeepers and farmers in Nigeria, and you are inviting people from around the world to come look at what these farmers are doing to produce this incredible honey that you're now marketing to the United States, and I'm sure you've got plans to take global. What is it that you think that these farmers can teach people coming in from the United States or New Zealand or any of these other partnerships that you're working to establish to really help you kind of showcase, that we're doing this the right way? Is it the sustainability aspect? Is it the prevention of deforestation? I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit more about that story.
I would writ large would be the importance of maintaining the flora and fauna, of a region, like the monoproduct. I'm sorry, not the mono, but the multi-product element of things rather than monoproduct, because one of the opportunities where I realized was when I first started was just like on a per unit basis. If you're trying to compete with Argentina and Brazil, or the Nigerian honey or really West African honey is more expensive because you're dealing with smallholder farmers. So if you want to go head to head like that, you're going to lose. So I also realized I had to go up market, create a brand, and go strong niche with that. And then that's where I realized that the kind of this weakness could become a strength by now working with smallholder farmers. Yeah, the per unit is more expensive, but now I've got a story about development and sustainability, which people want and care about. As the world becomes more digitized and AI, or people get more disconnected, people want that human touch. So, but I think the other thing, coming to Nigeria, people will appreciate what exists in Nigeria and West Africa. Like maybe even just starting with the incredible, forests and nature that's there that needs to be preserved. As I mentioned earlier, the preservation element, but then also the incredible work ethic and skill, and all the little small human stories that get lost in call it general geopolitical news that generally comes out of West Africa.
It's so true though. Like when you think about I don't think the average American, when you ask them to describe, hey, what does Africa look like to you? They're going to think of, two things. They're going to think of like the African bush, where you go on safari, or they're going to think of the Sahara Desert. And that's totally not what I've seen from the photos that you've shared with us. So I think that's just such an incredible viewpoint for you to bring to the table. And I really appreciate you doing so.
Well, even for myself, like it's been, even though I grew up in Nigeria, like I realized how little I actually seen, Nigeria by itself and not even Africa. Like this has gotten me out into, the bush and the wild, and to appreciate, what's out there, and like seeing and appreciating nature even more, just even though I grew up there.
Yeah. Again, another opportunity right there. Yeah. So that's awesome. All right. So for the folks who are listening or watching this podcast and are thinking, okay, I better try this. A couple things from you. One, where could they learn more about Goldswarm Honey? And for whiskey fans out there, how could they get their hands on a bottle of Denver Broncos honey whiskey?
Well, for Goldswarm, obviously it's our website, www.goldswarm.com. We're also on Amazon. If anyone wants to check out the vodka, it would be oyavodka.com, oyavodka.com. And as a little aside, Oya in Yoruba means let's go. So it's a high energy word. We use a lot. So oyavodka.com. And the Breckenridge is available through retailers throughout Colorado and regionally.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Omar. We really appreciate you joining the podcast today, and hope to have you on again in the future.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
You're gonna have to tell us how to say "move the stairs" next time.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
That was a ton of fun, though. Omar, just speaking to him, and we know this from the background and working with Omar, he just gets it, and he understands that his story can so deeply connect with people that he's trying to reach, from the farmers that he's working with. these micro farms in Nigeria to the consumer to things leading to partnerships with major distillery brands in his home state of Colorado. Just a great story all around. I love it from that aspect.
And he did well, sharing the story with the media, which I think is important. And I jotted this down because I thought that was important for people listening to kind of replicate what he was doing in terms of chatting with the media or doing those interviews. It's just being authentic. The media is looking for a good story, and he's got a great one.
He really does. And then to build that resilience, lots of times when you're a new brand, to be able to look to another organization to help you build that credibility. But you have to do it, as you said, Mitch, authentically. Mm-hmm. And so the way he's doing it, how he's helping these farmers get trained to become beekeepers, that leads to less deforestation and more sustainability. You put that whole thing together, that is like a perfect storm for someone who is telling a story. And that story can really help fill that trust bucket and really lead to a resilient brand. So he just did a phenomenal job putting this whole thing together.
Could not agree more. So again, on behalf of the entire MNC Communications team and the Move Stairs podcast, we'd like to thank today's guest, Omar Lababidi. He's the founder and CEO of Goldswarm Honey, for joining us today. And we want to thank you for listening and watching, and stay tuned. You never know who we're going to have on next, onto the next episode of the Move the Stairs podcast. And we can't wait for you to tune in. Take care.